Welcome back to the Bernard Lee Poker Show. Once again, we are celebrating National Women's History Month, and we are very pleased to have our sponsor. It is the Poker League of Nations. Go to pokerleagueofnations.com to join for free and look at all of their free content. And we are very pleased to have on the 2021 MSPT, the Mid-Stakes Poker Tour Player of the Year, the first woman who was Player of the Year for that tour, Kyna England. And Kyna, you talked about, kind of how you led up to all of your momentum during 2021. As people who are watching on YouTube can see the mothership behind me, the final table for the World Series. Was this the first year that you kind of went to the World Series and had a full, kind of at least a decent schedule?
Yeah, I did play in 2019. I played only like 3 events though, kind of went by myself. I didn't really know anybody. So just played and had a good time. It was still really great. I actually think I only played 2 events at the World Series Poker, and I cashed in both of them. And so I was like, oh, I'm batting 100. I should just quit, But and then when I went this year, I played quite a few more, and it went completely the opposite way. But sometimes that happens. So it was still really fun, cool experience.
Right. So, obviously you were playing in the series, not going that well. You did cash in one of them, but decent cash, 500 buy-in and 73rd. So still a nice solid run. But with regards to it, you have all this momentum from the Venetian, you have all this momentum from all the MSPTs. Did you go into the World Series with, maybe a little bit of a hint of, God, I'm really excited. Maybe something special could happen?
For sure. I was like, I'm gonna win a bracelet for sure.
Right,
I mean, who of course.
Let me just get it all ready to go.
Do you need my wrist size? Okay.
Exactly. Go up to Jack. Jack, by the way, this is my wrist size. Just want you to know. No worries.
I still, again, did just have a really good time. I was with friends again, got to meet a lot of people just because was around, got to talk to new people. Coming off of the momentum from the WPC, it was just cool to be around and just be somebody that people kind of recognize, and be, talk to people and say, hey, we watched you, we rooted for you. I think that's always really nice to hear, just people rooting for you to do well, I think. And everybody's trying to do really well at the World Series Poker. It's a tough field. You got a lot of people to go up against. And, that was probably a mistake of mine going in and being like, I'm going to win a bracelet. But, one of these days, hopefully I will. And we got to just keep trying again. And so aside from that, it was still a really great series, really eventful. Lots of stuff happened and I had a great time.
That's great. Awesome. So, obviously World Series, not great success on the felt, but obviously a great experience. The World Series is coming along very quickly here during the month of May. So we're very excited about 2022 and obviously heading over to Paris and now the newly appointed Horseshoe, renamed from Bally's. But let's talk a little bit about the MSPT and your kind of journey. Like you said, you finished 3rd in that first event that you played in at Iowa Riverside. Now you end up finishing deep in the San Diego event, and now you're on the leaderboard. And so, like you said, you're kind of going around playing in some of these events. You go to Blackhawk, you end up finishing in 15th, and you start at what point did you end up realizing, did you start chasing at that point, being like, you know what, I'm gonna do this, I may not be at the top right now, but I'm gonna go chase?
Yeah, I think it was after the San Diego stop. I was just kind of like, all right, well, I'm up there on the leaderboard. There were a few people that, I would see at the MSPT that I knew were also on the leaderboard. So it was, more about just going to the different places and trying to get the points at that point. And so I did, make a few small cashes that got me some points. There was one at the Venetian that was huge that I played that I got 153rd in and got a bunch of points for that still because of how big it was. So I just knew I was it was coming down to the end of the year in December. And I knew I would be out in Las Vegas for the last one at the Venetian at the end of the year. And there was one in Minnesota, right? And so that's just a hop, skip away from Chicago. I was
Sure.
really busy in the middle of moving though. But I was kind of like, you know what, like we're on the leaderboard, like let's try. Like you never know what will happen unless you tried. So I went with my friend Sarah, and we had, we had a great time. I'd never been up there and played there. So it was also, bucket list, like check one off that I've been to. And yeah, it was just, when things just go your way, that's kind of the day that I had on day 2. Like I had a rough day 1. I think I had to make it through. But put chips in the bag, and then we start all over again. And it was a fun day for sure.
You end up winning that event in Minnesota. What a great event at Canterbury, which is definitely one of the big casinos up in Minnesota up there. 1,042 entries, first prize, almost $200,000. What's interesting to me is when you are chasing, right? So like a lot of time on the World Series circuit, you're chasing points to be in that top 50. So you get a free entry into the $10,000 kind of championship event. I've had that chase a bunch of times and made it a few times, didn't make it other times. And I found when I'm doing that is when you're trying to get to that leaderboard and get up there, you're not even looking at the money anymore. You're just totally like, it was funny because the money jumps were different than the point jumps. So you could have like a money jump at 18, but like the point jump is at 16. You're like, I don't really care. Like I need to get to 16, not 18. Did you suddenly start realizing these jumps as you're playing? Like, you're like, I don't care about the money right now. I got to get to 13th. And like, what's the difference of 13th and 14th? That's points, baby.
Yeah, spot on. Like I didn't really look at the pay jumps much on that one. I had
it's
asked
funny, right? It's a completely different way of thinking.
When we were down to like 3 tables left, I was a little short, and I remember being like, okay, I asked Brian, what do I need to get to be first, in points? And he said I had to be 8th. I had to be at least 8th to jump into first place. So I was just kind of keeping that on my radar. And I remember being down to 2 tables, and I had this like sick flip with 9s versus ace king, and like I had the 9s, another guy had the ace king, and boom, king in the window. And I was just getting up, and there was like a conversation going on that I was just not having either. I was like, all right, fine, whatever, blah. And then the dealer puts the 9 on the river. I'm like, oh, okay, and so then we're back in.
Right. Never mind.
So it was exciting for sure.
Never mind. Did the one-time jacket stand-up thing? It worked. Now I'm gonna put it back down. Right. So it's interesting, right? Like, and that I think that it's always a funny scenario when you're point chasing. It has nothing to do with the money all of a sudden, and now it's all about the points. I remember one time, like I was trying to get to 6th out of all things. It didn't matter. I could have cared less. And then I ended up getting 6th or 5th or whatever it was, but it was just what I needed to qualify for that $10,000 event. And I went to the window, and the person said, okay, here's your payout. And I was like, oh, that's more than I thought. Like I didn't even think about it, because all you were focused on was that point scenario. So you obviously get the major points with that first place. I mean, just massive there. And the last event was at the Venetian, right? That was the last event that they had at the end of the year. You are leading the way. Did you know all the scenarios? Like it's hard to say, like, because I mean, there's a lot of people who could win that could jump you, but after a certain point on like day 2, there are a lot of people that are out, and then there's only a few people that could catch you. Did Brian tell you all of those scenarios?
So I had looked already. I already knew, right? Going in, I knew.
Brian, I got it.
So I knew there were actually only 3 guys that could jump me. Yeah.
Wow.
Because that was the 2,000 points is the most that you could get for first. And so I knew, like, okay, these are the 3 guys within 2,000 points of me, and only 2 of them actually showed up. And so I kind of kept my eye on them. And I know one of them went out. I think he went out early on day 2. I didn't make day 2 either. So that was even more stressful, because I tried and just couldn't get anything going. And then I know it's Taylor Howard. He was in day 2. He had a pretty good stack. And so I was just watching him the whole time. There was my friend Sarah, though. She made the day 2. So I went to the Venetian, and they had like a consolation $600 tournament that I sat and played just so I could keep an eye on things over there. And I actually had a great seat too, like in the other room, in the side room by the sports book. I had a seat that had a direct line of sight to where Taylor was sat in the other room. So I could just stand up, and I think he had that mindset too. He was like, I don't care about the money. I need to make 7th. He needed to make 7th place. Yeah. Right. And so it was just great to keep an eye. And then my friend Sarah ended up being at his table, and this is actually hilarious. She like all of a sudden I see her like bustling by, and she was like, "Oh, Kyna, I'm so sorry." I'm like, "What happened? Are you okay? Are you out? What happened?" She's like, "I went all in with ace king, and Taylor called me with ace queen, and I was going to be so happy to take all this chips, and then there was a queen on the flop. I'm so sorry." I'm like,
I'm so
"It's
sorry.
okay." Like,
That's
she was
great.
just more sorry
Not
for me,
your
and I'm like,
fault.
"Oh." I'm like,
That's
"I'm
funny.
sorry that you got coolered like that. That sucks, you know." But
Right,
like,
right.
yeah, she's such a good friend. Like, she was rooting for me. You know, we were just watching him. Like, he's such a great guy too. If he had won, I'd have been very happy for him. He's, family guy, and I think
Yeah.
he's from Nebraska, I think, or something like that. But it just, I had run into him throughout the whole year, and just, fun smack talk and everything. So I just kept telling myself, if he gets it, he deserves it. He's gonna win it. You know what I mean? So just to try not to but that was a sweaty spot. I was just all day like, and I think he ended up getting 27th or something. So,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was
yeah.
over
Yeah, I mean,
then.
he still
But
got deep. I mean, deep enough that
yeah,
you're sweating it. I mean,
yeah, you
that's
can't
not
have the
like, oh,
fight
he's
without
out
the
in a
sweat.
hundredth. I mean, that's
Right. Yeah.
you got to put like a tile tracker, the one of those tiles on him, and like once you hear it beep and he's moving, like, is he going to the bathroom or is he out? That kind
It
of
was
thing.
made it made the experience a lot more fun to at least, have
Right.
the sweat going on for sure.
Right, right, right. So when it was officially, when he unfortunately officially got eliminated, was it announced in the room like it's official now, or did
No,
it
I
happen
think they just
later?
they probably put it on the website or on Twitter or something that it was official. But yeah, like
So
I
how
know
did you
Chad
find
Holloway
out?
was
Like,
there.
obviously you're watching his spot, but he gets up, he can go to the bathroom. Like, how did you know? Like, it's officially, it's out, he's
No,
done.
I saw him in the cash out line because at the Venetian, you can,
Yeah,
when you're in that side room, that you're right by the cash out line. And I saw him, and he made eyes with me, and he's holding up his ticket. And I got up and I congratulated him and hugged him. And I was like, "Ah, good run, man." Like, and he
yeah, yeah, yeah.
congratulated me. And it was really cordial and nice. He's a great guy, super nice.
That's when you go into the bathroom and go, yeah,
Yeah.
you come out
I
and you're
did.
like,
I found Sarah, and we were like, "Yay!" Like,
that's awesome. That's awesome.
yeah.
So how has been the recognition with regards to it? Because, really, we've talked about it with some people. It really came out of left field, and I'm not just, saying anything negative about it. It's more of just, wow. So, not many caches. Now suddenly it was this kind of steamroll effect to the end, and now you're MSPT Player of the Year. It's a major deal. It's not the first time a woman has been kind of a Player of the Year. Previously, there was someone on the Heartland Poker Tour, Mary Jo. I actually knew her pretty well on the tour. We used to play all the time out there, and I think her husband was Player of the Year as well. Another
Cool.
year, which is actually kind of cool. But for the MSPT, you are the first woman. Talk a little bit about it. Over the last month, there must have been a lot of buzz and a lot of people probably touching base with you, and whether it's interviews or whatever. Obviously, we're having this interview right now because of it.
Yeah, I've been doing quite a few interviews, which has been really great. I like, answering questions, and I mean, who doesn't like talking about themselves? No, just kidding. But it is great to know that I'm teaching women too, and it's a little bit more validating. And the greatest thing actually has been is that I've noticed, like, the classes that I teach on Poker Power have gotten a little bit more attendance, and
I'm
people are
sure. I'm
asking me
sure.
questions, and it feels really good to like be knowledgeable about something and be able to answer those questions and be pretty confident about it, because
Yeah.
yeah, it does look like it happened overnight, but like it didn't.
Of course.
I played a lot in 2018, 2019 and failed and cried, and like,
Yeah.
was just like, I'm mad at myself for even going, right? Like,
Right.
and
Right.
and I not only worked on my physical game and like spots, but my mental head game too. Like,
Right.
because like we put ourselves through this, and this can be very mentally draining. Like, yeah, you
Right.
sit there and you play cards all day, but it's tiring. And when you try your best to make it all the way to the end of the day, and you bust in the last level of the day, you're just like, beat yourself up. Why did I even come? And so I worked on that a lot throughout this year and last year, to try and better myself. And every time I was in a big spot and I didn't win, I'm like, what did I do wrong? And yeah, there are all those times that sometimes you get lucky, but I call those sometimes you win anyway spots, because that's
Right.
what poker is. You put yourself in a spot that you can win a lot of chips in, and sometimes you do, right? And so I think it's just being confident in your ability, and being persistent and learning as we go. Like, I am going to be better, only better tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and keeping that in my head, and knowing that is, what kind of keeps me going, and what kind of
Sure.
gave me the momentum this year, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it's unfortunately like Ricky Bobby, right? when if you're not first, you're
You're not
last.
first, you're
And
last.
that's unfortunately the world of poker we have, no matter what it is. There are situations. I talked to a couple people this summer who finished runner up in a bracelet event or third. And I was like, hey, we always joke and say condola congratulations. You know what I mean? Like, so like,
Condolulations.
yeah, whatever it is, but like, or congratulations. I think that's what a lot of people say, right? And so like, and one of the gentlemen texted me back. She was, thanks, I appreciate it, but I will tell you, this is one of the few times where I'm actually pretty pleased. I was literally the short stack coming into the final table, 9th, and I somehow ended up finishing runner up. So I was short the whole way. Even heads up, I was short. It would have been a miracle. And the fact that I got here, pretty happy with it. So like, those are the moments. Those are very few moments that happens, but mostly if you don't end up picking up the victory. And it's hard. I mean, it's not easy to pick up a victory. I don't care if it's a single table or if it's 100 person or 1,000 person. It's just hard to do. Obviously, you've improved your game tremendously over the last couple of years. If you can, tell my listeners, we're not focusing on women listeners here at this moment. I'm talking about anybody. I don't care. People who are playing, they're playing in pub leagues or wherever they are playing right now. And you're literally living the dream of, I would say, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of poker players. They all are sitting there thinking, I can do this one day. I can make $750,000. I just have to be given a chance. Realistically, a lot of them aren't. They're not going to. They probably think a little bit more of their game than they need to, but some of them can. And what I'd love for you to give some advice to people who are on that verge of maybe they can, but they have to work on it. What do they have to work on? What are the things? You talked about the mental aspect. Absolutely. I really think that's a very underrated aspect of what you have to work on. People don't realize when you lose a hand, you go on tilt, you might as well just walk out the door. Like, I mean, just leave your chips and figure it out from there. That is a very important thing. But what other things, what is one or two things that you've kind of learned along the way that you realize, what, I didn't used to do this, and without it, I wouldn't have won that MSPT event. I wouldn't have finished third in that WPT event.
I think like talking through hands that you had trouble with your friends or your peer group, or just, anybody that you feel comfortable talking to, because I always say, you don't know what you don't know, right? So like, you might think that you're really good, but talking through with somebody else, they might give you a different perspective that you didn't even realize, or teach you something that you might use next time. And I have a really good friend, my buddy Michael Burke. He's just awesome, that I will go to and I'll talk through spots, and he will literally be blunt with me and be like, no, why'd you do this? This is blah, 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 and just, he'll think of stuff sometimes that I didn't think of, and vice versa. Like, we talk about that a lot. And that's really great. And I have my girls, like my poker power ladies, that we talk through hands with and stuff like that. So I think just being open and remembering, like, write down hands too. Like, I mean, if you can't, you write down a good hand history, then you can remember it for later and review it, and like, the spots specifically. I think that's one key. And I think also too, just making sure that it's like always something that's fun for you to do, and like make it an environment that's fun. Like, if you go in and you're just grumpy and you want to get the cards and you're impatient and stuff, like, that's not ever going to be an experience. So I've really tried to incorporate a lot more positivity into my life too, and into my poker, and just trying, even when I have a bad run, like, what was something good that happened, like, what's something that can keep us motivated. Like, I have had a lot of trouble with anxiety in the past, and so like with poker, like I said, I would beat myself up. Working on your mental game is just really, really crucial to keeping your head together while you're actually playing, because like, you don't want to lose it like while you're playing, right? Like a tournament that you can't get up and leave. So I think, just working on your headspace for that, and making sure that you're having a good time, and like recognizing why we do this. Like, why are we continuing to play? Like, even when you lose, it has to be fun, and you will lose, right? Like, poker, there's one thing that's guaranteed, is that you're at some point going to lose. So yeah, I think that's probably what I would recommend, I guess. Just, stay sharp, have a good time, and keep going.
Yeah, and I think that, like you said, when you talk hands with people, what I always recommend with regards to that is to make sure that your group that you're talking with, there are different styles in that group. You don't want to have 5 people who are all aggressive. You don't want to have 5 people who are all like tight, because you guys are just going to agree with each other, or you're just going to basically just tweak ways of playing same way. I would rather have somebody who's uber aggressive. I would rather have somebody who's very tight and let them all talk about the hands. In some way you can glean some additional informations from each person. I really like when I'm typically a very tight, aggressive player, but I've talked with 2 or 3 players who I find are very aggressive at certain points during tournaments, and I write down hands. Maybe not even a hand I lost. It might be just a hand. Hey, could I have gotten more chips out of this spot? Or what do you think? And I've talked with them and they put a perspective that I'm like, oh my God, I never would have done that. And they're like, oh, you should have thought about that. And, vice versa. They'll come up to me a lot of times because I play the short stack well, and they'll be like, what would you have done here? And I tell them, I literally just got a text the other day about somebody saying, should I have done it in this spot? And, we talked it through. And so I think that that's very important as well, not just to do it with a group, but a group that's really kind of eclectic so that you can really grab information from all of them.
Oh, for sure. And that's a really great point that I hadn't even thought of, because my study group, my friend group, we all do have very different games and we play very different games. But when we talk it through, like, things make sense when I hear from my friends that play differently from me. And, and that's what's so great about this game too. That's the beauty of it, is like, you can play however you want to. You don't have to do anything. Like, there might be things that get you in a better spot, but everybody should formulate their own game and do what makes them feel good about it. So
absolutely. I mean, everyone's going to criticize everyone for whatever play they have, but ultimately when the cards flip over, it's nothing to do about skill. It's all about the poker gods. If they want you to win the hand, they're going to let you win. If the poker god didn't want to drop that 9 on the river, we're not talking with you right now. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. We're not having this interview because you're not MSPT Player of the Year, and that's
exactly.
and that's what it is. I mean, you go backwards in time, and how many hands, whatever flip you possibly had, during the WPT event, right? Like all these little tiny things that kind of come together and ultimately make your year. And obviously, it's come to where it is right now. So
yeah.
Kind of congratulations. It was a really great ride, a really great story in the world of poker. And a lot of people were rooting you on, and congratulations. And it's great to have you on here talking during the National Women's History Month, of course, once again, sponsored by the Poker League of Nations. We really thank you for your time.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Kyna England here, the 2021 MSPT Player of the Year. Stay tuned. Next week, we'll have more from the National Women's Health Month that we are celebrating here on the Bernard Lee Poker Show. And as always, may you always go in with the best hand, and may you never get unlucky. Good night, everybody. Also, if you are interested and you like this interview, and who couldn't have liked the interview with Kyna England, you got to like and subscribe so you won't miss any of the interviews during this month, during the National Women's History Month, or during all the World Series coming up in the 2022 WSOP. So please like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram, Bernard Lee Poker. Thanks, everyone.